Don't answer when she cries. Grief does not leave a house when you move. It waits in the corners. It breathes in the dark. It learns your voice. Emma Harper understood this too late. The new house in Briar Hollow was meant to be a beginning. White shutters, a wraparound porch, quiet countryside air that smelled of wet earth and pine. Daniel had called it peaceful. Emma thought it was empty, not abandoned, just waiting. They moved there 6 months after Lily died. 6 years old, brown curls, a laugh that filled rooms. Gone in 4 minutes, 4 minutes of distraction, 4 minutes of silence. Emma still heard the splash when she closed her eyes. She had been inside, just inside, her phone buzzing, a notification she couldn't remember now. When she looked up, the backyard was too still. Water reflects the sky so calmly. It never shows what it takes. The first night in the new house was quiet. Too quiet? Daniel slept beside her, exhausted from unpacking. Emma stared at the ceiling, unable to escape the familiar weight pressing against her ribs. She had brought Lily's old baby monitor. Daniel didn't argue. He rarely argued anymore. At 3:12 a.m., it turned on. Static filled the room. Emma sat upright. Daniel stirred. Did you hear that? The static shifted. Then came the sound. Soft. Broken. Wet. Crying. Emma's heart stopped beating. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was the sound of a child trying to breathe through water. Daniel grabbed the monitor and switched it off. The crying stopped instantly. They didn't speak, because if they spoke, it might make it real. The next morning, Emma found small, wet footprints outside their bedroom door. Tiny. Barefoot. They ended at the wall. Daniel blamed condensation. Old plumbing. The countryside air. Emma didn't argue. But she didn't wipe them away either. That night, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Light, deliberate, as if someone was learning how to walk again. She followed the sound to what had once been Lily's room. They had not unpacked the boxes yet. The door stood slightly open. From inside, drip, drip, drip. Emma pushed the door open slowly. The closet door creaked. Water pooled beneath it. Lily? She whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of hope. The closet door opened wider. Darkness inside. Then a voice, soft, fragile. Mommy, why did you leave me? Emma screamed. Daniel rushed in, flipping on the light. The closet was dry, empty, but Emma's hands were soaked. Broken by the hauntings, Emma confessed the truth on the kitchen floor. She hadn't been getting towels. She had been on her phone, distracted by a notification while Lily played. Daniel admitted he had been on a work call, hearing her laugh and assuming she was safe. The house seemed to groan in response, a low, satisfied sound that echoed through the floorboards. Daniel installed security cameras, hoping to find a logical explanation. He stopped sleeping, staring at the monitors until his eyes turned red. Finally, he showed Emma the footage from 3:12 a.m. Something small and child-shaped stood outside the bedroom door. Its hair hung forward, dripping, and its eyes were two voids of absolute black. A floorboard creaked behind them. Daddy, a small voice whispered. Daniel turned, but it wasn't Lily. It was Emma standing in the doorway, or something that looked like her. Her head was tilted at an impossible angle, her hair soaked and clinging to her cheeks. Her eyes were as black and empty as the thing on the camera. You didn't watch me, the thing said. Emma collapsed to the floor, gasping as if the air had turned to water. As she fell, a pale blue-skinned child with elongated fingers stepped out from the shadow of her own body. It wasn't Lily. It was a creature born from their guilt, shaped by their shared regret. The house began to distort. The hallway stretched into an infinite tunnel, and water began to seep through the wallpaper, pooling around their ankles. The air grew thick with the smell of chlorine and rot. Daniel tried to reach for Emma, but the water was rising too fast, fueled by the weight of the things they hadn't said. The entity did not walk. It crawled across the ceiling, its joints bending in sickening ways. "I'm alone," it whispered, its voice a chorus of wet splashes. "Stay with me." The house was feeding on them, an architectural manifestation of a grief that refused to be buried, and it would not be satisfied until they were both under the surface. Emma clung to Daniel as the water reached their chests. There were no doors left, only the rising tide of their own memories. The house was no longer a home. It was a lung filling with the dark water of the past. As the lights flickered and died, the only sound left was the soft, rhythmic breathing of the thing that had finally brought them together in the dark. The house reacted with a violent, discordant hum. The entity, built from the rot of their unsaid guilt, let out a sound like ice breaking under a heavy boot. It thrived on their isolation, on the way they blamed one another in the silence of the night. As they chose to stand together, the creature began to shudder, its form losing its edges in the flickering light of the hallway. The water didn't just recede, it vanished instantly, as if the floorboards had suddenly become a desert. Daniel fell to the dry, scarred wood, gasping for air that no longer tasted of rot. Above him, the creature on the ceiling began to flake away. Its long, spindly limbs dissolved into gray, ashen scales that drifted down like burnt paper, leaving only the shadow of what it had been. "Run," Daniel hissed, pulling Emma to her feet. They didn't look back at the cameras or the rooms filled with boxes that would never be unpacked. They ran toward the front door, their footsteps echoing through a house that felt suddenly, unnervingly hollow. The walls groaned around them, a sound of structural failure as the manifestation of their grief lost its grip on the physical world. As they reached the threshold, the entity made one final, desperate attempt to hold them. It appeared in the large hallway mirror, a fractured, kaleidoscopic mess of damp curls and black, hollow eyes. But the reflection was brittle. As Daniel threw the door open, the glass of the mirror shattered into 1,000 silver shards, spraying the floor with the remnants of their nightmare. They stumbled out onto the lawn, the grass cold and damp with the morning dew. The sky was a pale, bruised violet, the sun just beginning to bleed over the horizon. The house in Briar Hollow stood silent behind them, its white shutters looking like closed eyes in the early light. It looked like an ordinary house again, but the air around it remained heavy, as if the ground itself was holding its breath. "Is it over?" Emma asked, her voice trembling. Daniel didn't answer immediately. He looked down at their joined hands, which were scratched and cold, but firmly held. The weight of the house's haunting had lifted, but the space where Lily had been remained, a quiet, permanent ache that no longer sought to drown them, but would never truly leave. They walked toward the car, leaving the house to its shadows. But as Emma reached for the door handle, she froze. On the pristine, dry glass of the window, a single wet handprint remained, tiny, barefoot, and perfectly clear. It was a final, haunting sign that while the house was behind them, the grief was a passenger that would follow them wherever they went.